what would you call them? Sort of, not innuendo, I mean, flat out statements that I had been, that our staff had kind of given, I'm not going to say direction, but ways out, sort of like, if you want to get out of this, then you can do this, and that I had seized upon that and said that, and I showed the document. I showed that the information that we had received in the report that went to council contained the information I used to make my decision. That I had expressed that or reviewed before council, at council. Now, after council, there have been 3 times that they've come back at me and said, you did this because you got direction from staff, and you never had that intention, and you never, it wasn't that, and tell us to know about it. This was your own piece of information, tell us that you know it. Well, I showed that it wasn't. Tell us did know about it, and then tell us that addressed it when they addressed council, but this will not be let go now. It has taken on a life of its own. It has taken on a kind of sense of truthiness when in fact none of it's correct. And when I point out that, I still get frustrated.
So this really goes back, again, I'm going to shift the discussions back to the council charter again, because it really goes to the core of this. You know, you have a lot of work to do as a council. You have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of accountabilities. And I would encourage you not to let individual situations like that distract you from your really key central goal, and that's the goal of governance. I mean, as I just said to the mayor, you know, you really can't stop people's behavior in an informal setting. I mean, it's going to be, in the real world, that's going to be very difficult to do. But you have total control over the work that you do at the council table and as a councillor and as a mayor. You have total authority over that. And you need to stay focused on your principal goals. You know, you need to keep your eye on the prize. And in cases like that, it might not be fair, it might be hurtful, it might really piss you off, right? But you've got to not let it distract you. You actually have to actively work at not letting it distract you, because it will. It'll sometime,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And it probably sounds like it has. Sometime.
It's because it's only one in a series of examples.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to shed those. You have to just, like I think the parallels in your personal life, you have to shed those, don't sweat they're not small things. You just can't let them take over your time. So if we can we go back to this? And it's not that this is a really, really good discussion, but at the end of the day, I do hope we'll have a sense of where your comfort is. So, Councilor McKay, just back to your original question about governance and management. So is that helpful information?
They'll have one more question about when you're an alternate on the board.
Oh, right. Well, you know what? There's really more than one answer to that. And Frank, you know, I'll give you my personal experience, my personal point of view on that, but the other point of view is just as valid, I think. In my mind, as a representative on a regional board, you are a representative of your council. You're elected by the council to be their representative, right? That's how you work. Do you have a secondary election for RD members here? No? So you are elected by your council to sit on the board. No,
it's verified by, yes.
The
appointments are recommended by mayor and council.
That's right. So you're there as their representative. In my view, you should represent their point of view, so, particularly on any major items. So in our case, it might have been a land use item, a regional growth strategy item. I would have always taken those things back to the council and got their point of view on it, and I would have represented them. But you know, there are others that believe you should vote your conscience, and you know, you can make a good case case for that too. But, given the process of the appointment, you're there, elected as a representative of your council, I think you should be voting with the majority of council.
So you're suggesting that we go to RDN as a block?
If the council, passes it, so let's say something on, let's say the regional growth strategy. Say the regional growth strategy is finished and it's coming up for its final vote and the council don't support it, then yes, that's my point of view. I think you should represent that, because that's who you're representing. You're not representing yourself at the RDN. You're representing a council.
That's why the waste to energy thing was so confusing for everyone.
But Bill, you could wage the other point of view, and I know that there are many RDN directors that would take a different point of view. I completely respect that. I think you can make a case on either side, but
council can lose confidence in,
well, that's what happens.
And I know that it did happen here when I was on the particular council,
that's
was
exactly
removed from the RDN and was made what, because they, not with that
Yeah.
council's.
That's exactly right, and that is more and more common all the time. Where the majority of council does not like what is being represented at the regional district court, and the council moves to remove the board appointee.
So then, for guidance, how does, when we have a meeting following our council meeting, the RDN table, so we've got Monday night, we've got council, Tuesday night, we've got RDN. So at what point does this council get together on RDN agenda items to discuss what position this council is going to take?
Well, probably, 90% of the items on the RD agenda, you don't require to see council opinion. You probably have a good point of view, or the item's been in play for so long, you feel you can adequately represent the council's point of view. But there are probably big items where you probably should put, well, again, this is just my own experience, you should put that item on a council agenda for discussion. So something like an RGS goes on the council agenda for discussion, and then council makes a motion, and then you take that motion to the RDN. That, I think in my time on council, 9 years, I maybe saw that happen, less than half a dozen times. So it really would be the exception. Because most of the time, you can probably gauge what council's point of view is, and if they're not threatening to take you off, then you're probably doing a good job.
So then, my next question would be, of the 17 directors, there's 7 from the city of Nanaimo, there's at least 4 or more from other municipalities.
Yeah.
I think they may or may not be surprised to hear that we are being advised that prior to them attending RDN meetings, they must have the blessing of the council as to what they're going to say.
Well, let me be clear about what I said here. There are 2 options. You can choose to represent the majority point of view of the council, or you can vote your conscience, is what some argue. But there are 2 options. And then I'm telling you what my point of view is, and I've said also that I think you can argue equally well that you should be there and represent your conscience. So I think it's a difficult, and I think some individuals find it really difficult to manage what they call the 2 hats, right? I didn't. It was very clear in my mind. I knew I was there at the will of council, and I was happy to take their point of view forward. I was completely comfortable with that. Maybe some aren't. So
if I can, in your municipality, you went to the CRD table
Yes.
as the mayor.
Yes.
Different role than 7 councillors. Did you?
No, not
So how many councillors of your municipality sit on the?
one.
One.
But I didn't. I'm a director of the board just the same as every other director of the board, and my job was there to represent the will of council, just as the mayor would in any other time. But before me, it was a councillor that represented the mayor didn't represent the community, the councillor did, and her role was to represent the council. So, I mean, you know, you really, if for example, you were to not represent the council in your voting at the RD, I mean, you do it at your peril. And Diana, you just said there was a case in Nanaimo where there was a threat to take a director off the RD.
Did.
Yeah.
You did take it off.
Yeah.
So I don't know any of the detail of that, but you do it at your peril, and you know, you might be completely comfortable with that. I mean, in some cases, you know, if you have some ethical belief that what you're voting on is, you know, is contrary to what you really believe, then you might be okay with saying, well, you know, this is important enough to me that I'm not representing my council's point of view, and then either council will be okay with that or they won't be.
Well, all decisions are very impact our budget.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's actually what I was gonna say, is that your role as a counselor, the things that you deal with, and your role as an RD board member can be different, or are different, because of their service, the services they provide are things that we don't provide. So your role is different. Your stake in that role is as a council, representing council within the city. So the transit and the sewer and all those big items, regional growth management, all affect us significantly, but it's a different role they play than us. So that's why when you come to me sometimes and you say, well, why can't you answer this question, or you need to give us advice, it's hard to give technical advice on some of the bigger detailed problems because I don't have the staff, I'm not involved, but I can give you city of Nanaimo's perspective on some of the things like transit.
This is actually, I think, one of the weaknesses of the system. I mean, I'm a big supporter of the regional district system because it allows us to do a lot of things that in other government systems in Canada they can't do. So there are lots of good things about it. I'm not regional district bashing here. But one of the, I think, gaps in the process is, and I certainly felt this myself, as a representative to the regional district, you don't have the same level of staff support that you do when you make decisions at your council table, right? And you can go to your city manager, but you might only have some information for you, and you just don't have the same kind of access in the regional district to the staff, and I just found that a bit challenging. So I get that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, one of the challenges when we have an issue here and we go to city manager or staff and ask them, but you know, at the RDN, if I call or there, a lot of times I think their fiduciary responsibility is to the RDN, and I think that when it's a member of the Nanaimo Council calling in some cases, they possibly inadvertently or not, but I think I often feel that they're trying to take the RDN position, and I'm saying, well, yeah, but my question is related to kind of the city viewpoint. What is the impact of the city? This is that, and they're saying, well, you know, wait a minute, the RDN, which to them is a separate entity, which it is obviously, and they take the RDN's position on it. So sometimes you find it very challenging to get specific information, and then the information you get, is it to the benefit of the RDN or to the benefit of the community? And you can bet it's to the benefit of the RDN. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's reality.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm really glad I'm only Italian. But this is an example that I just, maybe it's a bit off, but I'd like your opinion on. But it comes to what Nanaimo and Lansdale think about doing with water.
Right.
Some of my colleagues who sit on the regional district, on the previous council where they sat as well, approved the regional growth strategy of the regional district. And then they used the argument of, in the water discussions, to not do a certain thing because it would promote something that actually was within the confines of the regional growth strategy. So there's this conflicting stuff that I get really confused about, and I just don't get that. Are they correct?
Well,
I'm not sure that I understand.
I agree with Fred, but so as a regional growth management discussion, Lansdale is its own entity, and it's a node in the regional growth management, so it should get developed just like Nanaimo should.
Right.
In the water discussions, there was arguments put forward to not provide water to Lansdale because we don't want
To
that
keep the
growth.
development from happening. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's politics, isn't it?
Well,
you know,
I
you
don't-
could.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say that, first of all, I have to say that I declared a conflict of interest, so I did not get involved in the Davis water. But I'm not sure I'm comfortable with Peter saying that the city council did not want to provide water for fear that it's gonna create some development. So I think it was based, at least my feeling would be that because we were still trying to find out what water resources we had available for our own city first, before we start entering into contract to sell it or expose it to other communities. So, at least I hope that's the case. I mean, just going to one community is going to try to stop, growth in another community by holding that water.
I mean, I think that that's, you know, these, a debate, and again, I only know a little bit about the water issue at Glencoe. But I mean, this is the kind of debate that is, you know, it's usually really complicated. Like it's got lots of layers, right? And at the end of the day, you know, that item needs to come to the council and you as a group make a decision. And all of those layers will come out in some form or another, right? And, you know, you have, and I really have come to believe this, you have the advantage of having 9 members around the table, which is a fairly large council in BC, right? And that means that there's a lot of different points of view around the table, and at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna have a vote. And the group will make a decision, irrespective of what each of you individually just, you know, feel, or, you know, don't want council, or don't want Lanceville to have any development, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. You know, at the end, you will come to a group decision. It will probably be some kind of homogenized decision. So hopefully some of those extremes will be canceled. Okay? So, as you can see in this particular document, now this document, as is indicated, you know, is intended, once it gets to its final draft, this is something that you, as individual council members after each election, would sign and agree to. So I want to know what you don't agree with in here. And you can see that I have these 4 topics: the strategic direction, allocating resources, managing risks, and oversight and reporting. Those are your key areas of responsibility, and I've offered a discussion of each of them, and just provide some guidance, an explanation of what they mean and what they mean to your goal. And then I've created this chart, and let me just say first that, you know, who does what's your role in some of these areas, and what's the staff's role. I have not had the opportunity to sit down with the staff and discuss this in detail, so I fully expect that there are things in here that maybe aren't exactly right, particularly the names of some of the plans and some of the budgets and stuff. So I would still like to do that, but is there anything in the previous pages or on this grid here that you really feel uncomfortable with? That you see your role as being different? You can see for sure that the appointment of the city manager, well, let me just go through this very quickly. The very, very top, and this isn't necessarily hierarchical, but I did put the governance role at the very, very top. Your role is to lay out the rules of the game. So the governance policies, the procedure bylaw, which I know you're working on right now, identifying your performance expectations and the committee structure, those are the rules of the game for you. That is really your job. And then your appoint city manager. You are solely responsible for that. Nobody else involved, really. And then, you know, the strategic plan sets the overarching guidance for the corporation, your business plan, your budgeting, and the planning and policies and bylaws, and then your communications and reporting, and then your external relations. So that, you know, is my cut at my attempt at trying to describe your role in some kind of detail and lay out what you do and what the staff does in each of those areas. So is there anything that you react with a rash to? Would you be prepared to put your signature on the bottom of this?
Could you explain maybe, sorry, I'll jump in this,
Yeah, please.
the last one where you say that the city manager develops, I'm confused with the strengthened relations with citizens. whereas council may feel that's their role.
Yeah, you know what, I think that's a mistake, to be honest with you, I do. Thank you for pointing that out. Because this, in my mind, this area is really, you know, I think council, this is your really elected role. You know, you need to build these relationships with your partners, and it's very much a political role. And I don't see the staff being terribly involved in that, except for on a kind of mechanistic, logistical kind of thing. So yes, I think that's merit. Maybe what I might want to do that is, what I might want to do with that, Ted, is maybe make a little note that, you know, the staff has a supporting role in that, a supporting logistical role. But yeah, definitely not developing anything.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's great.
Funny time I haven't turned on.
Yes. Because you always.
Wait.
I did notice in the procedure bylaw that the cell phones are supposed to.
Oh, it's so embarrassing.
So we good?
This is a cool thing though, as far as I'm concerned, it's a city manager and council. Like, for example, I was sought after to be a keynote speaker at a recent Chamber of Commerce meeting. I think that was an important function that he performed, because he did
Yeah.
gain the confidence of the community at that.
Well, I think if we describe that as a supporting role, as opposed to taking real responsibility for it. But, yeah, you know, I hear that. I'll just give some more thought to that, because I think,
Alison, can I interject and
yeah,
suggest a fine for that?
yeah, sure.
My wife. So, she never phones me, so there's gotta be a problem.
Okay.